Some photos capture the final moments before a species is gone forever, showing the point where no rescue, no plan, and no warning can save what is left. From the tiny Australian frog that carried its young inside its stomach before a sudden disease wiped out every last one, to the Baiji dolphin whose 40-day river search ended without a single living animal found, and the Thylacine pacing in a cold cage on the night the world lost its final survivor. These images are heartbreaking proof of how quickly animal lives can disappear when we realize the danger far too late. Number 10. The Zanzibar leopard. The Zanzibar leopard was once a small but fearless hunter that lived only on the island of Zanzibar in Tanzania. Its smoky coat let it disappear into the dry brush, and for generations it survived by avoiding people. It was smaller than mainland leopards, but fast, intelligent, and skilled enough to hunt pigs, monkeys, and other island animals. It had lived there long before modern settlements existed. Everything changed in the 1960s. The Tanzanian government labeled the leopard dangerous after a rise in livestock killings and reports of leopards entering villages at night. Farmers blamed the cats for missing goats and chickens. Traditional healers claimed leopards were being used as spirit animals, controlled by witches. These beliefs spread quickly, and the animal was soon seen not just as a nuisance, but as a threat tied to witchcraft and misfortune. The government launched an extermination campaign. Officials encouraged villagers to shoot on sight. Hunters were paid to track them. People were taught to fear the leopard instead of protecting it. A species that had once lived quietly was suddenly treated as an enemy. The population collapsed. Forests where the cats once moved silently became empty. By 1990, the final confirmed sighting was recorded. No new tracks were found. No animals were captured alive. Only a few photographs remained to prove the leopard ever existed at all. Then, in 2003, a National Geographic team filmed a leopard-shaped figure moving through the forest. Hope spread across the island. Some believed a few survivors had escaped the killings, but scientists could not confirm it. No prints, no scat, no new footage followed. Nothing. The mystery remains. The Zanzibar leopard may be gone forever because fear, superstition, and government policy turned people against an animal that never had a chance to defend itself. Or, as some still hope, a few may be hiding deep in the remaining forests, living out their final years, far from the humans who ended their kind. Number 9. The Great Auk. The great auk was a large, flightless seabird that lived across the cold coastlines of Canada, Iceland, Greenland, and northern Europe. It stood upright like a small child, swam with incredible speed, and raised just one egg a year. For thousands of years, the species survived safely on remote islands where almost nothing hunted them. Because they had evolved without land predators, they had no fear of people. When sailors approached, the birds did not run, they simply watched. That trust destroyed them. Hunters realized they did not need nets or traps. They could walk straight into a colony and grab birds with their hands. Crew after crew slaughtered them for meat, feathers, and oil. Feathers were ripped off to fill pillows. Bodies were thrown onto ships to feed entire crews. Fat was melted into lamp oil. As the demand grew, the killing increased. Ships sailed directly to great auk nesting islands for the purpose of wiping out entire colonies. The birds could not fly away. They could not defend themselves. They could only stand and wait. By the early 1800s, there were very few left. But the tragedy did not stop. Collectors decided they wanted eggs and stuffed specimens of the last great auks. They offered large sums of money for them. This created a deadly race. Whoever found the last birds first could claim the final egg, the final bodies, the final pieces of a species disappearing in real time. The end came in 1844 on a small Icelandic island called Elde. 3 men arrived and found a pair of great auks guarding their single egg. The birds tried to run, but they were slow and confused. The men killed them both. During the struggle, the egg was crushed under a boot. That pair is believed to be the final great auks to ever live. There is no film of them, no sound recordings, only drawings, written accounts, and the knowledge that the species died because it trusted the very people who destroyed it. The story of the great auk remains one of the most heartbreaking extinctions in history, clear proof that even the most abundant animals can vanish when humans see them only as resources to use and trophies to claim. Number 8. The Gastric brooding frog. The gastric brooding frog was one of the most extraordinary creatures ever discovered on Earth. Found only in small, misty corners of eastern Australia, it existed in 2 forms, the northern species and the southern species, both hidden away in remote rainforest streams. To look at them, you might have seen nothing unusual. They were small, quiet frogs that blended easily into the forest floor. Yet inside their bodies, one of the greatest miracles in the animal kingdom was taking place. What made these frogs truly astonishing was the way they cared for their young. Instead of laying eggs in ponds like most amphibians, the mother swallowed her fertilized eggs. Inside her stomach, something remarkable happened. Her entire digestive system shut down completely. Acid production stopped, muscles relaxed, and for several weeks her stomach would become a warm, living nursery. Dozens of tiny tadpoles swam inside her, protected from the outside world. As they grew, the mother's body stretched gently around them. Her belly swelled until she looked as if she carried a secret life beneath her skin, which she did. And when the time came, she performed one final miracle. She brought her young into the world by releasing them through her mouth, fully formed and ready to live on their own. No other vertebrate on Earth has ever been known to raise its offspring in such a way. Scientists first discovered this incredible ability during the 1970s, and the world was amazed. The gastric brooding frog became famous almost overnight. Researchers hoped that studying its unusual biology might one day unlock new medical breakthroughs, possibly even helping humans understand how to control digestive functions or heal stomach disorders. But nature can be fragile, and wonder alone cannot protect a species. Within barely 10 years of their discovery, both the northern and southern gastric brooding frogs vanished from the wild. A deadly fungal disease known as the chytrid fungus swept across the rainforests, killing amphibians throughout Australia. Deforestation and habitat destruction added to the pressure. The delicate world these frogs depended on collapsed far faster than anyone imagined. Only a few photographs remain today. Still, their story is not entirely over. Scientists are now exploring de-extinction methods in hopes of bringing the gastric brooding frog back to life. Using preserved genetic material, researchers are attempting to recreate embryos and revive the species that once stunned the world. If they succeed, this little frog could become one of the first animals ever returned from extinction, giving hope not only to science, but to countless species facing similar threats. Number 7. Schomburgk's deer. Schomburgk's deer once lived in the wetlands and forest edges around Bangkok. It was a gentle, medium-sized deer, and the males carried huge antlers that spread outward like thick branches. These antlers became the reason the species vanished. In the early 20th century, trophy hunting became common. Hunters killed animals specifically to remove the head and mount it on a wall. A mounted head was seen as a symbol of skill, wealth, and status. It became popular in homes across Thailand and surrounding regions. Every mount represented a deer taken out of the shrinking wild population. While hunters were killing the adults, the land itself was disappearing beneath the remaining herds. Bangkok expanded at a rapid pace. Wetlands were drained to build roads and homes. Forests were cleared for farms, rice fields, and new neighborhoods. These wetlands were the deer's only habitat. They depended on soft grasses, water plants, and thick cover to survive. When the wetlands were destroyed, the deer had nowhere else to go. They could not live in cities, and the surrounding farmland offered no shelter from hunters. The habitat loss was so fast and widespread that scientists at the time did not track it, and local people simply assumed the deer were still common somewhere else. By 1938, only one Schomburgk's deer was left in the entire region. One animal standing in a landscape that no longer belonged to it. When that final deer died, the species became extinct. No hidden group survived in a distant forest. No second population was ever found. Number 6. The Thylacine, also known as the Tasmanian tiger. Among all the extinct animals captured on film, none is more haunting or iconic than the Thylacine, the creature many people still call the Tasmanian tiger. With its sharp, wolf-like face, striped back, and powerful jaws, the Thylacine looked like a predator carved from legend. Yet it was not a tiger at all. It was a marsupial, more closely related to kangaroos and wombats than to any big cat. For thousands of years, the Thylacine lived across Australia, Tasmania, and New Guinea, hunting quietly in forests and grasslands. It was a shy creature, avoiding humans whenever possible. Despite its fierce appearance, it was gentle by nature, often retreating rather than fighting. But its cautious behavior could not save it when humans began to reshape its world. European settlers arrived in Tasmania during the 19th century, bringing livestock and fear with them. Rumors spread that the Thylacine hunted sheep, though there was little real evidence. Fear soon hardened into hostility. Farmers demanded action. The government responded by placing a bounty on the Thylacine. Anyone who killed one could collect money for the carcass. Hunters poured into the wilderness. Traps were set, guns were loaded. Year after year, the Thylacine population fell. Habitat loss made survival even harder. Disease spread through the remaining animals. By the early 20th century, the species was struggling to hold on. The last surviving thylacines did not spend their final years in the wild. They were kept in small zoo enclosures, far from the forests that once covered Tasmania. One of them was later called Benjamin, though zookeepers never confirmed whether it was male or female. Benjamin lived alone in a narrow cage at the Hobart Zoo, pacing along the same worn path day after day. The short, shaky film captured there, just seconds of a restless animal walking back and forth, became the last moving image of the species. Benjamin's death in 1936 was not caused by old age or illness. It was a mistake. A deadly, preventable mistake. On a cold August night, a zookeeper failed to bring Benjamin into the heated shelter before locking the doors. Temperatures dropped sharply. Thylacines were not built to withstand freezing conditions without cover. Benjamin spent the entire night exposed, trapped outside with no way to escape the cold. By morning, the last thylacine on Earth was dead. No breeding program had been attempted. No effort was made to care for the species until it was too late. Benjamin had been one of the few chances the world had left, and the loss of that single animal ended the entire thylacine lineage forever. After extinction was declared, hope refused to fade. People reported sightings in the bush. Search teams walked through dense forests for decades, hoping to find even one survivor. None ever did. Number 5. The moa. If you have ever seen an old photograph or illustration of an enormous bird standing taller than a grown man, you are probably looking at a moa. These giants once ruled the ancient forests of New Zealand. Peaceful, towering, and completely flightless, the moa lived for thousands of years with almost no natural predators. A fully grown moa could reach more than 3 meters in height and weigh nearly 250 kilograms. That made it taller than any bird alive today. Its long neck allowed it to reach high branches, while its powerful legs carried it swiftly across the forest floor. Yet for all its strength, it had no wings at all, not even small ones. This made the moa incredibly vulnerable once humans arrived. For countless centuries, moas lived by feeding on leaves, fruits, and twigs. They helped shape the landscape, keeping the forests healthy and balanced through their browsing habits. But everything changed when the first Polynesian settlers, the Maori, reached New Zealand roughly 700 years ago. These early settlers entered a land without large predators, where birds ruled every level of the ecosystem. To the Maori, the moa became a critical source of food. Their meat was plentiful, and their bones and feathers were used for tools, clothing, and ornaments. As a result, the moa was hunted intensely. Habitat destruction added to the crisis. Forests were burned to clear space for settlements and agriculture, shrinking the natural homes of these great birds. With no wings, no defenses, and no ability to escape faster than humans could pursue, the moa population collapsed quickly. Within only a few hundred years of human arrival, every moa species had vanished. By the 1400s, the last survivors disappeared into history, leaving behind only bones, broken eggshells, and fading stories passed down through generations. One eerie image, often circulated today, is said to show the last moa ever photographed, towering over hunters holding spears. Some believe it is authentic. Others argue it is only a reconstruction, a stage scene meant to illustrate the past. Whether real or recreated, the image remains one of the most haunting visual reminders of a world long gone. Number 4. The passenger pigeon. There was a time when the sky above North America darkened, not because of storm clouds, but because of birds. Billions of passenger pigeons once filled the heavens in flocks so vast that they stretched from horizon to horizon. Witnesses describe the sound of their wings as a rolling thunder, a deep and endless hum that could last for hours as they passed overhead. These birds were among the most abundant species on Earth, so numerous that people believed they could never disappear. Passenger pigeons traveled in enormous groups. They roosted in forests by the millions, bending branches beneath their combined weight. They fed on acorns, chestnuts, berries, and seeds, shaping entire ecosystems through their sheer presence. For thousands of years, they lived in harmony with the land and the indigenous peoples who respected their rhythms. But everything changed when European settlers arrived. What had once been a symbol of abundance became a target for profit. The pigeons were hunted relentlessly for meat, which was sold cheaply in markets across the growing cities. Hunters used nets, guns, and even fire to bring them down. With each massive flock, people took more than they needed, believing the birds could never run out. The rise of the railroad and the telegraph made the destruction even easier. When a flock was spotted hundreds of kilometers away, messages spread quickly and hunters rushed to intercept it. Entire nesting grounds were wiped out in a single season. Forests were cleared for farmland, leaving fewer places for the pigeons to roost. Their once limitless world shrank rapidly. By the late 1800s, a species that had numbered in the billions had fallen to only a few scattered groups. In the wild, their calls grew faint. Their flocks no longer covered the sky. People finally realized the danger, but it was far too late. Captive breeding attempts failed. Every year, their numbers slipped closer to zero. The final known passenger pigeon was a gentle female named Martha. She lived in the Cincinnati Zoo, spending her last years in quiet solitude. Visitors came to see her, not because she was remarkable in appearance, but because she was the last of her kind. On the first day of September in the year 1914, Martha was found lying still on the floor of her enclosure. With her death, a species that once filled the skies disappeared forever, from billions to zero, all within the span of a single century. Number 3. The Eastern Heath Hen. Long before it vanished, the Eastern Heath Hen filled the open fields of New York and New Jersey with deep, echoing calls that rolled across the grasslands like distant drums. This bird was a close cousin of today's prairie chicken, belonging to the same family as quails and farm chickens, yet it had a look all its own. Tiny horn-shaped feathers rose from the sides of its neck, giving it an unusual and almost regal appearance, especially during courtship, when males displayed proudly to attract a mate. The heath hen thrived in wide grasslands dotted with shrubs, berries, and seeds. These open landscapes offered everything it needed: food, shelter, and room to perform its elaborate dances. For thousands of years, it lived peacefully alongside the indigenous peoples who hunted it in a sustainable way. But when European settlers transformed the land, everything changed. During the 1800s, farmers began clearing more and more land for crops. Each new farm meant one less field for the heath hen. With every passing year, its home shrank piece by piece. At the same time, the bird became a popular target for hunters. It was treated as a prize in game bird competitions, and its meat was considered a delicacy. Entire flocks were shot in a single day, and the once familiar calls of the heath hen grew fainter. By the late 1800s, the species hovered on the brink of extinction. Only one last group survived, living on Martha's Vineyard Island off the coast of Massachusetts. For a moment, it seemed that isolation might protect them. Conservation laws were passed. Hunting was banned. People hoped the bird could recover. But tragedy struck again. Wildfires swept across the island, destroying much of its remaining habitat. By the year 1927, only 13 heath hens were left in the entire world. A few years later, that small number dwindled to one. A single lonely male who eventually died too. He became known as Booming Ben, named for the deep, resonant sounds he made during the spring mating season. Year after year, Ben returned to the same open field, calling into an empty sky, waiting for a mate who would never come. His booming cries echoed across the landscape, unanswered and heartbreaking. Number 2. The Baiji River dolphin. For countless generations, the Baiji River dolphin was known as the goddess of the Yangtze. It was a creature of grace and legend, a symbol of the great river that shaped the heart of China. For more than 20 million years, this gentle dolphin lived only in the Yangtze, using its remarkable sonar to navigate the river's dark and muddy waters. It swam through ancient valleys long before humans built their first cities. But the same river that nurtured the Baiji for so long eventually became the force that destroyed it. By the middle of the 20th century, the Yangtze was growing busier, louder, and more polluted. In the 1950s, thousands of Baiji still swam through its currents. By the 1980s, only a few hundred remained. 2 decades later, their numbers had fallen so drastically that scientists feared the worst. The threats were everywhere. Polluted waters made the dolphins sick. Overfishing left them with little to eat. Heavy ship traffic filled the river with noise that interfered with their sonar, and many Baiji were struck and killed by fast-moving boats. When the massive Three Gorges Dam was built, it destroyed some of the last safe habitats these dolphins depended on. Scientists refused to give up. They created protected zones along the river. They attempted to capture a small number of Baiji to breed them in safety, but captivity was harsh for a species that had never lived behind walls. Most died within a short time. One survivor, a male named Chi-Chi, lived in captivity for more than 22 years. He became a symbol of hope, a final spark in a fading story. But when Chi-Chi died in the year 2002, many feared he might have been the last Baiji left on Earth. In the year 2006, scientists launched one of the largest river expeditions ever attempted. Ships and sonar teams traveled the entire length of the Yangtze for more than 39 days, searching every corner of the waterway for any sign of a living Baiji. When the expedition ended, they had found nothing. No fins, no calls, not even a shadow beneath the waves. The Baiji was declared functionally extinct, marking the first time in human history that a dolphin species had been wiped out by human activity alone. Number 1. The Toolache wallaby. Standing just under 1 meter tall, the Toolache wallaby was once one of the most graceful animals to roam the grasslands of southeastern Australia. Its sleek black and silver fur shimmered in the sunlight, and its movements were so fluid that early observers compared them to a dance. Many believed it was the most beautiful wallaby ever known, elegant in both posture and motion, a creature shaped perfectly by the open plains it called home. The species was first officially described in the year 1846, but even then, its future was already in danger. As towns expanded and farmland spread across its homeland, the Toolache wallaby began losing the native grasses and open spaces it depended on. Fences cut across its territory. Predators, both native and introduced, became more common. And as with many unique animals in Australia, hunting soon added pressure that the species could not withstand. By the 1920s, only a few individuals remained in the wild. Alarmed by how quickly the population was collapsing, scientists made a desperate attempt to save the species. 14 wallabies were captured for a breeding program that many hoped would give the animals another chance. But tragedy struck almost immediately. 10 of the captured wallabies died during or shortly after capture, leaving only 4 survivors to begin the program. The loss was devastating, both for the species and for the researchers who hoped to save it. The remaining wallabies were taken to a zoo, where every effort was made to help them reproduce. But the species was sensitive and easily stressed, and the sudden change from open grassland to captivity proved overwhelming. No young were ever born. Meanwhile, the last wild individuals were seen in the year 1924, disappearing into the fading light of a landscape that had once belonged entirely to them. After that year, there were only rumors, scattered stories of shadowy shapes seen at dusk, but no confirmed sightings ever emerged. The final Toolache wallaby was a lone female living in captivity. She died in the same year that the wild population vanished, extinguishing the last hope for the species. The photograph taken of her, the last of her kind, remains a silent and heartbreaking image. In her calm eyes and fragile stance, one can see both beauty and loss. A final reminder of how quickly even the most extraordinary creatures can be erased from the world.